Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a pretty amazing guest. He's coach, a psychotherapist, a master coach at SEALFIT, Michael Ostrolenk. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, Ryan. I appreciate having me on, man. Looking forward to this conversation.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So, I've heard some of your background story before, but for the audience, let them know, who is Michael Ostrolenk?
Well, I can share some formative things that's kind of set me on the path to becoming a therapist for the last 30 years, coaching for 25 of those 30 years, and a wide variety of other activities we can jump into that I've been doing over my lifetime too. If that's cool,
Yeah.
starting with my youth. Yeah, so you know, I could say unfortunately, fortunately, you could look at it either way. But when I was 5, I ended up in the hospital with an autoimmune disorder. Took about a month in the hospital. Add on to that some learning disabilities. I was finally diagnosed when I was a little kid, but it took a couple years for the diagnosis to take place. So school was a really big challenge. I love learning. School is hard. You take all those things and put it together, and the way it manifested in me around age 9 or so was as a hair puller, and is an obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a way of me dealing with my stress. And so my mom took me to see a psychiatrist, and this is kind of the beginning of the whole story. I saw a psychiatrist. I sat and talked for like an hour, and I looked at him. I looked at my mom. I said, "He's fat. He smokes. He can't help himself. How can he help me?" And I walked out the room, which is pretty obnoxious for a 9-year-old kid. But fortunately for me, my mom generally agreed. She probably wasn't thrilled with my demeanor, but like she agreed with the content. And she found me a therapist, not a psychiatrist, but a therapist. Because you think about this is 1979, a psychiatrist would have put me on medication, which is appropriate for some people sometime. But I'm really glad I didn't, because my therapist, Mrs. Pat Lawson, taught me guided imagery, meditation, and biofeedback. Now, it was 1979. The biofeedback technology wasn't as cool as it is now. But for a 9-year-old, learning to manage his nervous system with a screen that you could, raise or lower balloons was kind of really cool. And she got me into the martial arts and the whole new world of, I would look back and say, like, self-regulation, self-mastery, self-development. I didn't have those words then. Kind of opened up for me, and that was kind of the beginning of my path forward to what I do today professionally.
So what exactly is biofeedback?
So a couple different things, like our body emits signals all the time: heart rate variability, pulse, blood pressure. You can measure brainwave activities. So you can get a device that measures certain activities in the body, and one is stress. It changes the frequency of a particular thing. So like when I'm stressed, my heart beats faster, as an example. When I'm more relaxed, the heartbeat slows down. So you can measure those things. So back in the day, it was galvanic skin response. It was more the skin. Skin temperature changes when you're stressed versus relaxed. And I put my hand in this kind of glove device and connected up to the computer. And the more relaxed I was, I could raise the balloons. The more stressed I was, the balloons would fall. And I could hear a noise, which would indicate to me. So I'd have an audio, like a signal to my brain that I'm stressed, because it get louder as I got more stress, and I can take some deep breaths and hear it lower. And visually, I could see on the screen a balloon rise when I was relaxed and start flowing when I get stressed. So the immediate biofeedback gives me, if I can speak English, gave me information that I can then use to manage my nervous system. So it's immediate feedback. When I start taking deep breaths, deep abdominal breaths, I could see that I calmed down. If I didn't take deep breaths, I was doing more shallow breathing. I got really nervous. I could see I was getting really nervous. So I was getting immediate feedback on my own physiological states. Then she was teaching me how to manage them through breath and mantra as examples.
Man, that's crazy that you learned that at like 9 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, you
it's
got
really
a lot of
cool, man.
adults there's a lot of adults that don't even know how to control their breathing and
Yeah.
as a way to control, like their anxiety and everything.
Very, very lucky, because like I said, I don't put people on drugs, but like I much prefer that than having been put on a drug, because I was taught how to manage my nervous system, how eventually self-mastery versus like you take something to deal with the symptoms, in this case, the drug. So God bless my mom for allowing me to drop the psychiatrist and go find a therapist.
Yeah. So you mentioned Was it like guided imagery
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
used? Like, how did
Yeah.
that
So
come into play?
you might, if you're a sports fan, you'll hear that a lot of players, depending what sport it is, they'll close their eyes and they imagine themselves going through the motions, like taking 3-point shots.
Yeah,
And there's evidence,
visualization.
yeah, exactly. And there's clinical evidence to show that that's effective. It will actually improve outcomes. It's no different. I mean, that's obviously in sports, but it's no difference in an individual in their mind's eye doing the same thing to learn other types of behaviors in their mind, like maybe seeing themselves calm, relaxed, cool. So like I could close my eyes and I can see myself, my muscles relax, my shoulders drop, my breathing get nice and deep. So I'm seeing it in my mind's eye while I'm actually physically doing it. So I'm anchoring visually through the visualization. I'm also anchoring the breath. I'm anchoring the body. I might be saying something out loud to myself or inside my own head. So I'm anchoring it auditorily. So there's ways you can use visualization to manage the nervous system, like you also can use guided imagery or visualization to practice a sport, like shooting free throws, or if you're gun enthusiast, shooting guns, or if you're a martial artist walking through katas, whatever it happens to be. You can do the same thing internally to change your internal states.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I just say that all the time that visualization is the thing that leads to manifestation because your mind has to actually believe it first, and it gives you permission after you keep visualizing it so much. It'll give you permission to go chase it.
100%, because your mind doesn't always know what's real from fantasy. So
Yeah,
if you keep seeing the thing, your mind thinks it's the thing, and you believe that's the thing. So like
yeah,
it's real, it becomes real for you, and as you said, you can more likely manifest it. So I love your use of imagery for manifesting purposes. That's awesome.
yeah. So when you were in grad school, what forced you to change your major and choose the path you're on now?
Yeah, so all the stuff that I was doing with biofeedback, got into imagery, meditation, the martial arts, I got into alternative nutrition, fitness, and all that kind of good stuff was a private interest of mine. So it was like something I did on my own. It wasn't something I was thinking about doing professionally. And actually, at a college, I'd done some interviews, and I was planning on work for the federal government, law enforcement, or intelligence agencies. And so I did some private interviews with people like family friends, and they said, "Oh, you should go back to grad school." And this is in the late '80s, early '90s, and the MBA was the thing. Either you become a lawyer, or you get an MBA. So I'm like, "Oh, I'll do the MBA thing." So I started an MBA program, and about three-quarters of the way through, a dear friend of mine since elementary school, like kindergarten, in fact, was murdered. And kind of pause, like a deep pause, like holy shit, life is like fragile, holy moly. And then a month later, a teacher committed suicide, just another like right in my face. And it slowed me down enough and got me really depressed, actually, that I was like, wow, do I really want to do the path that I'm on? I was like, I have no interest in business the way I was learning in the MBA program. I was doing fine, like 3.5 or something average. So clinically, grade wise, it was fine. But I'm like, there's no interest there. It was just something I was doing for something else. And I was like, I asked the question to myself, what do I really want to do? And I was like, I really love the psychology. I really love to understand why people do what they do, both understanding why they do what they do, but also kind of aspirationally what's possible for us. And so I'm like, that's really what I want to go do. And so I dropped my MBA program. I was on the East Coast and I went West Coast. I did my graduate work at JFK University in transpersonal psychology. Transpersonal has nothing to do with the trans movement. I can explain what it means if you're interested. And then postgraduate work in somatic or body psychology. And that
yeah,
lit me up and set me off on the path that I'm been on for the last 30 years.
yeah. Explain what you studied there.
Yeah, so in grad school, because I'm licensed in the state of California as a marriage and family therapist, we had to study like object relations and self psychology and family systems, all the conventional schools of thought, cognitive behavioral. But my specialization is transpersonal. Trans means through and beyond the personal. Now, there's many ways of kind of thinking and talking about it. But my kind of favorite way of doing it is if you look at all religious systems, the monotheistic systems out of the Middle East, like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Taoism, and the yogic system, out of India and China and the rest of Asia, shamanic traditions in Africa or South America, or here in the United States and in Canada. All the religious systems, no matter which ones, they have practices they encourage their members to do to change their consciousness. Prayer, meditation, imagery, chanting, sensory deprivation, plant medicines like the psychedelics. Some have pain mechanisms, like some of the Native American traditions use pain to induce altered states or non-ordinary states. Wide variety of different practices, breath work, like everything from like a Wim Hof type of thing to holotropic breath work, yoga nidra, like all these different systems, all these different religious systems have religious practices. So in grad school, we studied the practices, meditation, yoga, psychedelics, sensory deprivation, because there's a recognition in Western science that those practices will change psychophysiology. You can take them out of the religious system and secularize them, and anyone can meditate. You don't have to be a Buddhist. Anyone can do the yogic practices. You don't have to be part of a Hindu. Nothing wrong with being a Buddhist or a Hindu. You can do contemplative prayer. You don't have to be a Christian. Nothing wrong with being a Christian. The point is, like, all these practices can be done by anyone at any time to change consciousness, to make one more loving, caring, compassionate, to expand the mind, to see, more complexity of the world that we live in, to connect more deeply with our fellow humans, or the God that you might believe in, the union or communion with God, or whatever, depending on the system of thought you're working through. So, like, all that is possible for these practices. So in grad school, we studied them and how to utilize them in our practices with clients.
That's pretty amazing. So what about the somatic breathing?
Yeah, so somatics, most schools of psychology are what happens between the ears, like how you think about your thinking, which is cool. That's really kind of important. But we're embodied beings. Like, literally, our consciousness, our mind is from head to toe. We know now that the gut has its own nervous system. It has its own brain. The heart has its own nervous system, its own brain. They're all interconnected, but, like, three centers of consciousness basically in the human system. So somatics is a recognition that we're embodied beings, that you can actually both learn to live inside your body because there's a lot of intelligence there, but you can also change your state by changing your body, meaning you can do certain breathing practices. If your energy is low, you can raise it up. If it's too high, you can calm it down. If you want to expand your consciousness, you can do that with certain breathing practices. There's certain movement practices. Yoga is a great example where you can free the body, because the rigidity in the body is a possible symptom of the rigidity of the mind. So you free the body, the mind loosens up. You free the mind, the body might loosen up. This is the mind-body system. So there are ways of working through and with the body that can open people up to, as I said, the intelligence of the body, make them freer, more responsive, less reactive, happier, healthier, more loving, caring, compassionate, those kind of things.
That's pretty in-depth studying right there.
It's cool, man. Yeah.
I always say it takes like mind, body, and spirit. You got to work all three at once to kind of set yourself free.
So so I have a program. I work with individuals, I work with couples, and I co-lead groups. With my individuals, I completely agree, mind, body, spirit. But I also would add one's social systems and one's environment into. I do a lot of environmental design work with clients, and also social system modifications to support growth and development. So yeah, it's really important, mind, body, spirit inside the person. It's also, like their environments also play a role in how they show up and how fully they can show up and how healthy they are as well.
Well, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what they say, like if a flower doesn't grow in one environment, you don't kill the flower, you take it, move it.
Right,
You
right,
know.
right, right. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, perfect.
Since you never served in the military, how did you start working with SEALFIT?
So I was 39, and my wife was like, "Hey, what do you want to do for your 40th birthday?" And I think she's expecting me to say, "Go to the Caribbean, go to the islands, and have a good time." And besides doing my therapy work and being a coach, I also spent about 20 years doing national security, public policy, which we can talk about another time. But in that work, I spent a lot of time with people in the special operations community and the intelligence community. So I was very familiar with Navy special warfare from that work. And Googling one day, I found this program by Commander Mark Divine, who founded SEALFIT, called the 3-week SOF Academy, which is an academy for young men who want to go Navy special warfare. So it's like a pre-BUDS training program. And you finish it off with what's called Kokoro Camp, which means Indomitable Spirit. Not after Hell Week, but this is for civilians. So it's 50 hours of nonstop physical training, no sleep, not 5 days like the SEALs go through, or the the Buds program. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Yeah, I was 39. I wasn't going to Navy Special Warfare, but I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I signed up and I moved out. I was literally living with Mark in the crew for like a month. Uh, Five of the guys that I trained with for that month are now SEALs. One's actually retiring this year, which is so cool. But, this is 2009, 2010, so it was a little time ago. And I had a great time. We trained 12, 14 hours a day. Sometimes he'd wake us up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go play in the ocean. It was awesome. So like a year later, after finishing the program, he reached out to me because we hit it off really well. And he's like, hey, I want to take what you did, but I want to make it for a broader audience because not everyone's 22, male want to go Navy Special Warfare, but a lot of people could use some of the skills, mental toughness, emotional resiliency, the physical capability, all the mindset work. So he's like, hey, would you work with me on creating what's called the Unbeatable Mind Academy? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I literally helped him build the Unbeatable Mind Academy. I ran it for him for a decade. He had me come in and lead his mastermind group called the Inner Circle. I helped him with his summits he put on every year. He launched a coaching program from the Unbeatable Mind, which you can get certified in, which I helped create, co-lead, and then run for a little while. So that was kind of my entry into Navy Special Warfare. Then another SEAL hired me to work for his company. His name was Dan Cirillo. Unfortunately, he died a couple years ago. So I also worked for another SEAL company. Now I'm cheating on the Navy Special Warfare guys because I'm working with an Army Ranger now, co-leading my men's group. So I've split up the branches a little bit, but that's kind of my work. That's how I kind of got working in the special operations community was with through Mark and then open up doors for other opportunities too.
Yeah, there probably wasn't too many people not wanting to go in the SEALs with you in that program, was there?
So it was really interesting. So for the first week of the 3 or 4 week program, we had a couple other guys who were older guys who just were there for the week. I think they're in their 30s. One guy might have been in his 40s, civilian like me. But for the full 3 weeks or 4 weeks, because it ended up being 4 weeks, it was just me, the civilian dude, and these other young guys who were going Navy Special Warfare. So yeah, I could be wrong on this, but I don't know too many people who did the full month academy with Mark who were not going Navy Special Warfare.
So
It was
what did
awesome
you
though.
learn? Yeah. So what did you learn from this experience that would benefit others?
Yeah, so I remember there was a Brad McLeod. He's one of the SEALs, a great dude, and he's one of our training cadre. And I remember him for Kokoro camp. This is the 50-hour camp. And he was just hounding a person on the beach. Him and another SEAL were hounding this guy on the beach. And I understood why later. The reason they're focusing so much energy on this guy is because he was thinking about himself. It was all about him. He didn't give a shit about his team. And once he realized that he's part of a team and he turned his eyes on the team, Brad and this other guy stopped harassing him because he had learned the lesson. And the lesson more broadly, outside of this one guy's lesson that he learned was like, hey, you're part of a team. Now it could be your family. It doesn't have to be a Navy Special Warfare boat crew team. But in this case, that was the model we're using. But you're part of a team, and sometimes you really need to take your eyes off yourself and put on the other people. And especially when you and your people or you even yourself are going through adversity. Not to say deny how you feel, not to say deny what you're going through. That's also really important to really feel your feelings and learn to express them healthily. But it can be really helpful through that challenging process to also take your eyes off yourself and give a helping hand to a buddy of yours or your wife or your kids or your husband. I mean, depending what the structure of the relationships are. So one of the things I say I learned from that is taking your eyes off yourself and put on your swim team, swim buddies, your boat crew.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's some pretty great advice right there to take the focus off yourself and just, focus on helping the others around you.
Yeah, and another lesson too is like Mark says this, SEALFIT, we're capable of 20 times more than we think we can. And I saw this at the Kokoro camp, 50-hour camp that we did. Because, you can imagine after like 10, 15 hours of training, you're exhausted. Like it's really hard for the physical body to train a couple hours, let alone 50, but like 10, 15 hours in, you're exhausted. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. Why the fuck am I here? I'm tired. I want to go home. The SEAL cadre is really good at fucking with you, so your emotions could be out of whack. But what you discover, that's why it's called Kokoro, is that indomitable spirit. Like you're capable of so much more than you think you can, what you imagine your physical body is capable of. And that's also an amazing lesson to learn. Like, wow, like, we think really small, what we think we're capable of doing, we're actually able to do so much more. You don't have to do a Coco camp to figure that out. There's a vehicle to help one figure that out. In my case, for me to figure that out. But we can learn that on our own without having to do 50 hours of hard physical training.
What was the biggest lesson you probably learned there about yourself?
Yeah, so one of the things Mark starts the 50-hour camp with was like you'll meet yourself for the first time. And I thought that was brilliant. And keep in mind that I already trained for almost a month with these young men, already, and just learned tons of great lessons there. But I was able to see that I'm, like I kind of said a minute ago, like I was capable of so much more. I came in with some physical challenges, and I said, fuck that. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to push through this stuff. Like, there are really no limitations except for the limitations we put in our own mind on what we're capable of doing. So that opened up a whole vista for me, which was awesome. And the funny thing is, I remember like a year or two later, I was complaining about something with my wife at the time. And she's like, I'm going to call Mark and tell him you're complaining. You're acting really small. I'm like, "Fuck, okay. All right, that's cool."
That's just hilarious because all I can picture is like one of them guys saying, just find a way to win.
Yeah.
The mantra, just
Yeah,
find a way to win, push through and find a way to win.
exactly. Yeah. And that's, these guys are great because they really, it wasn't Buzz in this, it wasn't Hell Week in the sense like they really want to weed out people. Now, a lot of, like, in my camp, we started out with 29, and we ended with 19, with a couple of medical discharges and a couple of people who just quit. And it's very interesting because we had Rogue Fitness came in and videotaped the whole thing. You can actually get on YouTube and see our camp. It was really kind of cool. And we had a bunch of CrossFit athletes. And I was like, holy shit, these guys are studs. And there's gals too, but these guys are really studs. And they really were. They're in great physical shape. But it's different for someone who can do a CrossFit thing for like an hour or two, which is great, amazing. That's different than having 50 hours of nonstop beat downs by people telling you different directions. You don't know when things are going to start or end. You don't know exactly what you're supposed to do at any one moment, which is different than a sport because the beginning, you're supposed to do this point, you're supposed to do this point. So like that whole kind of mental and emotional dysregulation is real, and it teaches you how to live inside that chaos. Like, oh, I can manage myself when all the world around me is going to hell because it really was and is. And that was a great lesson too. Like, hey, I can find that still point inside myself no matter what's happening around me. And even what's
Yeah.
happening in me. I don't have to react to it.
Yeah, I've seen that. Like the mind definitely will play tricks on you if you like put it into chaos and it doesn't know the outcomes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what they try to do. They try to put you in situations where you just don't know the outcomes, and that's their intent, so they can build that kind of resilience, that unbeatable mind. And I would say, unfortunately, or fortunately, how you want to look at it, like our world is becoming more VUCA, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous. Tech changes, geopolitical shifts going on, wars all over the place, cultural stuff going on. Like there's a lot of chaos in the world around us. Just watch Twitter.
Yeah.
And like the question is, hey, can you find that center point? Can you find that still place inside yourself where you can act from strength and love and not be reactive to what's going on around you, or even some of your own reactivity states inside of you? That's
Yeah.
important, I think.
Yeah. So why is it important to get out of your comfort zone?
Oh man, because that's where the growth happens. And it's really interesting because we've been talking about really hard physical stuff like Kokoro Camp or 3 weeks off academy, and all that stuff is great because that really makes you uncomfortable physically, mentally, and emotionally. But when I have my clients get out of their comfort zone, it's not just physical challenges, although those are kind of cool. But like, hey, talk to your wife about that topic. Oh, I can't. I don't like that topic. I don't want. It makes me really nervous to talk to her. Good, and that's why you need to have that conversation because you're nervous about having a conversation. We can slow roll it. We can develop your skills and capacity so you're capable of doing it. But if that makes you uncomfortable, that's the thing you should be heading towards. So you don't have to climb a mountain. You don't have to lift heavy weights long distances, like literally having a conversation with your spouse or your kids or your grown parents or employer or whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable. That might be the thing you really need to do to grow and expand yourself.
I completely agree with that so much. Like you can see it with society nowadays that everybody wants to be comfortable. They're scared to step out of that comfort zone where the true
Yeah.
growth happens.
Yeah. I mean, today is June 6th. We go back to D-Day, June 6th, 1944, when, the US, Canadians, Brits, French invaded Germany, right? Or invaded France into Germany. I mean, that's a huge day. And you think about like the 19, 20-year-old young men, Marines and Army guys, like hitting the beaches. And then I look at our 19, 20-year-olds, like who more reflect what you're saying. I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, holy shit, look, what a difference in generations. And
Yeah,
not to say, you need to be hitting the beaches and fighting the Nazis and stuff like that, but like a little bit of grit and resilience would probably be good for everyone.
I completely agree. So, what are the top three mistakes people make when trying to overcome adversity?
I work backwards, so trying to do it alone. You know, I, there's nothing wrong with getting help, whether it's professional help. I need a coach, I need a therapist, whatever it is, or reaching out. Hey, do you have your 3 a.m. buddies? Like, do you have a friend you can call literally at 3 a.m. in the morning if you're having a real hard time and have a conversation with them? If you're married, do you have the kind of relationship where you can talk to your husband or your wife about whatever it is and you really feel supported and loved and held and cared for? So your social system is really important. Maybe if you're religious, you have priests or a rabbi or an imam or whatever your system of thought is, or your religious system might be like, hey, and you go for them for support and help, spiritual support. Like, make sure you have a good support system in any of those spaces. I would say that's one thing people make a mistake. I can grin and bear it. I can do it all myself. You don't have to. You get some help. Okay. uh, Working backwards, the second thing I would say is just regulated physical system, this regulated nervous system. When I work with my individuals, I work with my couples, and even co-lead my men's group, I talk about human optimization. Like if you're not eating well, you're not sleeping, you're not exercising, you're not moving. I make a distinction between movement and fitness. You're not living within circadian rhythms, 24-hour day-night cycles. All that disrupts your whole physical system, which makes whatever you're trying to do even more difficult. Like if you're hangry and you're sleep deprived, like dealing with stress, dealing with adversity is hard enough, let alone you
Yeah,
feel like shit, it's even harder. So I'm like, hey, let's keep your physical system as best in top shape as possible, considering the circumstances you find yourself in. I'll go back. Are you eating well based on your genetic type and your ethnicity? Are you doing some physical training? You don't have to be, David Goggins running 100 miles before breakfast, but are you physically training something throughout the week? Are you moving or are you sitting in front of the computer all day? Just movement like Tai Chi, Qigong, a little bit of yoga, walk around the block, whatever it is. Are you doing some kind of meditative practice or maybe journaling just to get things out of your head and calm the physical system through meditation? All that's important. Are you sleeping? Like, this whole I can sleep when I'm dead is bullshit. Like, one night of bad sleep, you already increase the likelihood of insulin, of diabetes, and I think it's 2 or 3 nights of bad sleep, you increase your likelihood of car accidents. Like there's a lot of, I can't exactly remember exactly all the research, but even within just a few nights of poor sleep, you increase your likelihood of various chronic illnesses, let alone cognitive issues like driving heavy machinery and stuff like that. So like, and most of us, it's not even 1 or 2 poor nights of sleep. It's weeks and months and years of poor sleep. And we're leading us towards chronic illness because of that. It's like, hey, die on your sleep, get your sleep. Use an Aura ring or an ultra human ring or Apple Watch or a Garmin watch or a Whoop, whatever the thing is that excites you, if those things excite you, and track your sleep. Hey, how's your deep? How's your REM? How's your latency? What's the length of time you're in bed? And then what you can start doing is like looking at various factors that contribute to good or bad sleep. Hey, I drink alcohol at night, my deep sleep is off. I use THC at night, my deep sleep is off. Valuable information. Maybe you shouldn't drink alcohol and use THC at night because you're going to be sleep deprived to some degree or another. Or certain food I eat causes sleep deprivation or, disrupts my REM or deep sleep. Cool. You start looking at these factors, you can manipulate them to improve your sleep quality. That's awesome. You can make adult decisions. If you want to drink, cool. There's consequences. That's okay, but you're making adult decisions. So like, hey, the second thing is just keep your system as optimized as possible. The first thing is like mindset. Like back to what we were saying before, 20x. You're capable of 20 times more than you think you can. Remember what you've accomplished to date. Remember what you've gone through to date, that you've survived. That's awesome. And if you need to like look at the lineage of your family, maybe your folks, your grandparents, like survived some heavy shit, or all the way back, like, man, my lineage is pretty fucking strong. We've accomplished, awesome. Just you got to get the mindset that two things. I'm capable of doing this, whatever the thing is, the adversity is facing me. I'm capable of dealing with it effectively and efficiently, which is awesome. And another thing I would suggest people do is like, this is happening for me, not to me. If it's happening to me, I'm the victim of the thing. If it's happening for me, I can use it as lessons. It's a whole different mindset. It doesn't change the fact that something's happening to you, but it's like, hey, I can learn from this. And from learning, there's growth, and then you're more capable the next time some adversity comes your way. So mindset, human system optimization, and social systems. I would say are the three things people need to think about more when they're done with adversity, or I'd say even prior to getting adversity coming their way.
Yeah. I love how you talk about physical activity. I think that's where a lot of people are messing up in that area, because it's like, to be able to handle a lot of the stress and the things you go through, you need to be able, your body needs to be able to handle and get you to that next point.
Yeah.
But your body's breaking down because you're not active.
100%. And it's also really interesting too, because on the other side of, like, our muscles develop from rest and recovery, not when we work out. We break
Yeah.
the muscles working out, and they rest and recovery. So physical training, I think, is really important. Lifting weights, a little bit of cardio. I mean, if you're sports specific, training for the sport, that's cool. If you're martial artist, training the martial arts. But generally speaking, lifting weights and a little bit of cardio, good combination of things to do for long-term health and well-being and longevity. Awesome. But also the recovery on the other side. Like, you make sure you're sleeping. That's really important.
So plus the mental toughness part that comes from working out and being physical,
Yeah. So I co-founded with Will and Kat Ravello. I can talk about them, and Steve McDermott, something called Team Foundation, which I can talk about. I'll talk about briefly, but I can talk about longer.
Yeah.
And it's a group of people who come together to do hard physical challenges, to develop mental toughness, to develop emotional resilience, to develop tribe. Because, as we kind of said earlier, like, hey, 1944, June 6, 1944, our people are a lot different than they are today.
Yeah.
And we actually need to have more resilient, a little bit more mentally tough human beings on this planet, because we have some big challenges. One of the ways to develop that is through hard physical challenges. It's not the only way, but we offer through Team Foundation opportunities to train really hard for events. Like we did a 50-mile go ruck. That's an example of an event people can do. Like you can train up for Tough Mudder or a Spartan race, all these kind of really cool things, just to see get your baseline, what I'm capable of, and like, okay, I was capable of this, and I'm going to reach this next time, and this next time, and this next time. So as long as it doesn't become like an obsessive thing that's detrimental to your mind, I think hard physical training towards an event that you show success in with a group of people can be really cool.
I completely agree with that. So you talked about this a little bit, but what's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset to you?
Well, it kind of goes back to life is happening to me, life is happening for me. A fixed mindset is like, I'm a victim of this stuff. This is happening to me, and there's nothing I can do, just be reactive to it. A growth mindset says, this is happening for me. I can take this as an opportunity to learn, grow, evolve, adapt, and overcome. Completely different things. So like adversity, like life is going to happen to you. Adversity is always going to happen to everyone at some point in their life, some people more than others. The question is, how do you face it? Do you face it as a victim that shuts you down and makes you smaller and scared and more insecure? Or do you face it? Do you learn from it? Do you grow from it? Do you learn to adapt and overcome? That way you're stronger than when the next thing comes your way. That's more of a growth mindset than the fixed mindset of like, oh, this is happening to me.
Awesome. Like, I love how you phrase that and everything. And I've heard you say mindset is not enough at times. Why do you say that?
Yeah, so, and it comes back to the somatic work. Mindset's what's happened between the years, like how you think about stuff, like, how you approach the world, which is great. But you want to have an alignment with your physical body. Like if I'm thinking I'm gonna have a growth mindset, but I'm holding my breath, my heart beats really fast, I'm gaseous or I'm having diarrhea because I'm stressed out. Now there's a mix match between how I think I'm thinking and the rest of my physical body. Like, oh, that's not so good. The ideal is like you're integrated whole. Like your mindset reflects your nervous system, reflects your whole physiology. So you are calm, you're cool, you're collected, you're not stressed out, freaked out, your body's not contracted. Like it's relaxed and ready to take action. That's reflective of more of a what I would say an integrated growth mindset because you're integrating the physical body into the mindset versus like kind of like the split where like I think I'm thinking good thoughts and my body's a mess.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you touched on it before. It's like a whole experience, mind, body, and, spirit all together as one to
Right on.
actually improve your life like that, and to make your mind shift where it's, hey, everything's happening for me and not to me, like you said.
Yeah, and it takes these are things to develop and cultivate over time. Some people seem to be born with more of a growth mindset. Some people more with a fixed mindset. Some people, because of their environment they grow up in, have a more of a fixed versus a growth. But whatever your thing is, especially if it's fixed, you can open it up. You can actually go from a fixed and open or a growth mindset. You can change your physiology. You can change your nervous system to support a more of a growth mindset. It just takes time and effort, which is pretty anti-American these days because, like, it's Amazon. We ordered today, we want it yesterday. Well,
Yeah.
discipline and practice are important. These things take discipline and practice to really build up your physical system to reflect your cognitive system, your emotional system, so they're integrated whole. So you can, have a front side focus. You can have an offensive mindset. You can run towards the challenges with a strong, open, loving heart. It's like all that stuff together. But that needs to be trained in a lot of people. That they don't necessarily have that naturally.
Yeah, I completely agree because I had to go through that transformation where I kind of had to learn all that because I had that fixed mindset when I was
Oh yeah.
growing up.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not unusual. Our culture thrives on fixed mindsets. Like you think about Madison Avenue selling you all the stuff it does. It makes you feel like you're ugly, stupid, fat, all the stuff. It makes you feel really bad about yourself. And you buy their product or your service and you feel a little bit better about yourself for 5 minutes. Ah, I'm wearing the right clothes, I have the right purse, the right makeup, the right car, I'm drinking the right beer. I'm so, and then you're like, then they remind you that you're a schmuck and you're feeling shit about yourself and you get the next thing to make yourself feel better. So our cultural and cultural forces actually encourage a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. Unfortunately, at least
Yeah,
at this time here in the United States.
yeah. So, what kind of services do you offer? Like coaching services?
Yeah, so I do individuals. I have a 6-month program. It's a very comprehensive human development program. Work on physiological stuff. I kind of walk through the sleep, the fitness, the nutrition, the circadian biology. We work on psychology. We work on social systems. I'm a marriage and family trained as a marriage and family therapist. So I always think systemically in terms of your social relationships and your environment. Does your environment support the person you want to become? And we do a lot of work there too. So that's my work with individuals. I have a 6-month program. I like 6 months with couples, a very intensive program that I do with couples. With JC Kalik, he's a former Army Ranger. We have Resilience Optimized Men's Group with 6 months, another 6-month program, and just launched our second cohort 2 weeks ago. So we're in the middle of beginning of that stage. And then with C. McDermott, Will and Kat Ravello, Team Fudishin. So if you want to do hard physical challenges in a team environment, you can find me there as well. Those are kind of the 4 spaces I play in right presently.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
So, you have a podcast, Resilience Redefined. What inspired you to start that?
Man, so the name changed, but I've been podcasting since 2008. And there's different iterations of names over that period of time. But really, the reason I started doing the podcast is I spent 20 years doing public policy besides doing the coaching work that I do. And I was on Capitol Hill a lot. I was in White House with the various agencies, but also Capitol Hill. And I always thought it was really cool that members of Congress and or their staff could call anyone in the world to come and testify, or at least come in and educate their Congress member on a particular subject. I was like, man, I'd love that because I love to learn. I'm like, if I could just call someone, they just fly in to come see me for like an hour or a day, that'd be awesome. Well, it's called a podcast. I literally can have someone show up on my show, whoever I want, not within reason, I can read their book. I can study the materials in advance. I can literally have them on my show for an hour and learn from them. That is awesome. So like it's an opportunity for me to learn new things in depth with a cool guest. But also I love networking. So I talk to the guests. I'm like, wow, you should talk to that person. You should talk to that person. So I love connecting my guests with other people that might expand their own network and increase the opportunity to impact the world in new and different ways. So for me, it's like both education and networking opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
my favorite part is probably hearing a lot of the backstories you get to hear, like, of what people overcome. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause that's
yeah,
one
right.
thing I hear from a lot of people is like, that fixed mindset of, well, poor pity me. I can't do this. It's like I have all these things against me. It's like, just go through it. If you would just stop complaining and go through it, you can accomplish whatever you want in life.
I have a 5 minute rule. And I literally just talked to a client this morning about that. My 5 minute rule is I give myself 5 minutes to bitch about whatever I want to bitch about, whatever's going on in my head. Like, 5 minute mark, I have to go take action or shut the fuck up. Either one. But I get it out. I can bitch about it, and then I literally got to go do something. Like take that energy and go do something. Solve it, the problem, whatever the thing is. And in the case that you just showed up, like, hey, address the adversity, deal with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like deal with it. So like, hey, nothing wrong with 5 minutes of bitching. Cool. If it's 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, maybe that could be a problem. 5 minutes, get it out of your system, and then go solve the problem. And if it's a problem that necessarily can't be solved in that moment, change your mindset so you can address it differently.
Man,
That'd be my suggestion.
that's a pretty good rule. I mean, I got 5 minutes to complain about it and vent and just bitch about it to
Yeah,
myself, and either I find a way to get it done or I move
yeah,
on.
yeah. And I'll throw something out there that I thought was kind of a fun thing that I can say I'd imagine it could be a good metaphor for other areas of life. It was a Jedi mind trick I came up with. I mentioned it for Team Food Chain, we did a 50-mile go ruck. I was in Ecuador for a month training for it. So I was rucking 4 to 6 hours a day, 98 degrees, 100 degrees. It's fucking hot as shit down there. Great, beautiful country. And I remember one time I was rucking, and I think I was doing a 17-mile ruck, and I was probably 10 miles in. And I started bitching in my head, like, oh my God, it's hot. I'm tired. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to be doing this. So my trick was like, okay, cool. I'm going to run hills. I'm going to give myself something to complain about. So I started running hills, which makes it even harder because I'm wearing weight vests. It's fucking hot as shit. So after about 15, 20 minutes running hills, I come back and I'm quiet as a mouse. This is easy compared to running the hills. So one thing you consider doing is like amplifying the pressure so then you can actually see what you're going through is not so bad.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like that trick because, like I tell people before, like I've said, like my mind will tell me when I'm at the gym, oh, you don't need to go do this. So what do? Just add more weight, like
Perfect.
add
That's
more weight to it.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
now push. It's like telling you to stop,
Love
and
it.
you just keep lifting so you can't, till your body breaks, and like
Yeah.
you just gotta
Yeah.
learn.
Keep going. Yeah. You can always do
Keep,
one more. One more. Yeah.
yep, you keep learning how
Love
to
it.
train your mind that way. I mean.
Yeah.
You want to complain
100%.
and like I'm going to teach you that hey, you just got to push through.
Exactly. Yep.
So, is there a possibility of you writing a book one day?
So this is my other computer, and there's actually three incomplete books on there.
3.
Yeah. So they need to be complete, but I have one that's almost finished on the mature masculine, kind of rethinking masculinity in the 21st century, evolving the concepts of masculinity. I have a book on relationships as a marriage and family therapist for 30 years on like how to think about doing relationships. And then I have two primers, one on transpersonal psychology and one on somatic psychology. All four of those are pretty much done. I just need to like have my assistant clean them up and then eventually find a publisher or throw it on Amazon. So I'm pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the answer is almost.
almost. I mean,
Almost.
because you have a pretty vast array of knowledge in a lot of different areas. I mean, so I was just kind of
Yeah.
wondering. I was
I
like if
appreciate
you're
that, man.
going to
Yeah.
share that knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think I already know the answer to this question. But how important has personal development and upgrading your mindset been for you on your journey?
Dude, that's been the whole journey. Like, it's been the thing that's probably kept me alive, really, and moving forward with through some of the challenges I faced, especially as a kid, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So, how important is a community of people for personal development? I think you've
So I
touched on
think
this
it's
a little bit too.
yeah. So I think it's huge. I talk about communities of practice. So if you want to be physically more capable, join a if you're interested in CrossFit, join a CrossFit community. Join a community of people that train really hard together. That it's not like you go to the gym, you work out, you maybe say hi to someone, you go. This is like a community where like they miss you if you're not there. One more rep, come on, you get a little faster. They're really pushing you, you're pushing them. And you can do that in all areas of your life. You can have an emotional community, a mental community, a physical community, interpersonal community, a spiritual community. Maybe it's a Bible study if you're Christian, a Torah study if you're Jewish, the Quran study if you're Islamic, a Buddhist group, whatever the things are. You go, you meditate, you pray together. There's communities you can come together to develop certain things in you, like your spiritual capabilities. Uh, Cognitively, like, hey, maybe join a book club, go study something really interesting to you, but in a group setting. So, like, I find some people are more introverted, they don't like other human beings, they like their dog or their cat. Okay, that's cool. But like, I find if you're around other people that are a little bit better than you in certain areas of your life, they pull you forward. They're a little bit smarter, they make you a little smarter. They're more physically capable, they make you want to be more physically capable. They're more emotionally mature, they make you more emotionally mature. They're more spiritually evolved, they make you more spiritually evolved. Or they can be catalysts for those kind of things. So I think community is important.
I completely agree on that one. I mean, I think that will take somebody from one level to the next, like the fastest, being around the right people because they'll elevate you in so many areas.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, yeah.
So here's a question I ask everybody on the show. What is one
Okay.
book you would recommend to the audience
Ooh,
related to personal development or mindset?
man, so I'm going to plug Commander Divine's book, Unbeatable Mind. I think it's an excellent introduction or even advanced for some people. Check out Unbeatable Mind. You can get it on Amazon by Commander Mark Divine. I would say that's a really good book for personal development.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are your short term and long term goals?
Oh man, long-term goal is for Team Foundation to become an international phenomenon. So we'll be having events all across the globe, not just here domestically in the U.S. That's one of the things. I would like to start. I've co-led and I've led retreats, and I'd like to do a lot more of those for couples because I love working with couples. That's really important to me. Part of my longer term goals are to do more public speaking. Pre-COVID, I did a lot more than I did since COVID. I've been on the road. Like I've been in Austin, Texas for a year. Prior to that, I was on the road for about a year and a half across the U.S. and South America. So it's kind of hard when you're traveling every couple of weeks to go somewhere to get, to get stable to have an opportunity to speak and teach a lot of places. But I'd like to do that. Previous to COVID, I spoke in Europe. I taught in Europe, taught all over the U.S. I'd like to do more of that as well. I love teaching. So if I had those opportunities to teach any of this stuff, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. So, good goals to have.
Thank you.
What kind of advice would you give to, since you touched on how much you like working with couples, what kind of advice would you like to give to the listeners?
So for couples, I'll say there's four things that each of the individuals in the couple need to consider. First one is their own healing, their own wounds, whatever they're bringing into the relationship. It's important to be working on that with a therapist or a good coach or whomever that can help them through their wounds, because we all have them to one degree or another. And they show up as reactive states. Like, if you're reactive to your partner, like you get angry or you shut down or whatever the thing that you do, you've learned how to do that in childhood, most likely. That's something that can be healed with a good therapist or coach. The second thing is learn to self-regulate. Like, hey, you're in the middle of a conflict with your partner, learn to regulate your nervous system, calm yourself down so you don't say something stupid or do something stupid. Stay calm, cool, and collected. The third thing is evolve your consciousness. What do you need to do to become more emotionally mature, more cognitively complex in your thinking, maybe more moral, whatever the line of development you want to work on, what's your next iteration of that? Work on that. And the fourth thing is, 'cause we talked about earlier, is like optimization. Optimize your physical system. Sleep well, eat well, move, fitness, stress management, circadian biology, 24-hour day-night cycle. So if you feel like shit, it's hard to show up really well for your partner. If you're feeling good, vital, energized, relaxed, calm, cool, collected, then you can show up more loving for your partner. That's important too.
Great advice.
Thanks, man.
So how can people get a hold of you?
So michaeldostrolenk.com, my website. Facebook, Michael David Ostrolenk. LinkedIn, Michael David Ostrolenk. Way too much time on Instagram, M Ostrolenk, Ostrolenk. And on Twitter, M Ostrolenk as well.
Awesome. So is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
The last thing I'll leave your audience with, I think optimization is important, regulation is important, all that stuff is important. But I'll say one thing the world needs more of is kindness. Like, some people are having a real hard time. You just never know the person in front of you could be that close to taking themselves out. They're so stressed out. They're so in such despair. So just a little act of kindness can go a long way to save someone's life. You just never know. So be kind.
That's some great advice right there. I mean, in the world we live in where, everybody's kind of out for themselves instead of, like you said before, it's all about me and not about anybody else around me,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So final question.
Yeah,
What
man.
is one piece of advice you'd want to give our listeners about overcoming adversity?
You are capable of 20 times more than you think you can. If you don't have one, learn to develop a growth mindset. Optimize your physical systems so you have the physical energy to face the adversity. Get some good support, whether it's professional help, friends, family members, religious institutions. I think all those things together can go a long way to help you through the adversity, whatever it is. Mindset, physical optimization or towards physical optimization, and a good social system.
Great advice right there.
Yeah. Cool.
Hey, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on here. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
it's been a pleasure hosting you and just like hearing your background story. Oh, there is one question that I wanted to ask you that I didn't get to ask you at the beginning.
What's that?
So I laughed when I heard the answer to this question.
Uh-oh.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
So when I was a little kid, I wanted to be James Bond, a ninja, and a mercenary. I used to subscribe to Soldier of Fortune magazine when I was a kid. I read all about the ninjas. I was into martial arts, so I was like Bruce Lee, but I loved the ninjas. And I watched the James Bond movie. So as a little kid, those were the three things I wanted to be.
When I heard that question and you answered it, I just started laughing. I was like, man,
Yeah,
that's so far away from where you are now.
yeah.
Hey, well, Mike, thank you for coming on here. I mean, it's been a
Hey,
pleasure
Ryan.
hosting you and like learning about you
Thanks,
and
man.
everything. So
I appreciate
anytime
it.
if you finish your books, want to come back on and we'll promote you
Thanks, man.
again, you let me know.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, Ryan.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, not a problem. Well, guys, that's all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want in life is go through the fire.